He was dead set that the pain from the appendix was ovulation pain. Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about tracking our cycle, why we need to track our cycle, what we need to be tracking, when to start, and how to go about it. Let's get into it. So the question why you need to track your cycle is a very simple one to answer. Number one, you're either trying to conceive and you're trying to track your fertile days. Number two, you're trying to avoid a pregnancy and following the fertility awareness method, which we will talk about in another video. And number three, for health reasons. So health reasons being the most important one of all three, because with the information that you can gather from tracking your cycle, you're able to help your doctor actually identify many health issues that could be underlying and you would never really know unless you tracked your cycle. So for example, I had no idea I was low in iron. The only reason I realized this was because my cycle literally reached a point where my period was 2 days long, and not even 2 days long. Now, another example in regards to tracking and knowing when your periods start, end, etc. is also in regards to health when you go to the doctor or emergency room and you need to have this information handy. For example, when I was 15 years old, I actually ended up in the ER with an appendix that was bursting. Well, kind of opening and closing. It's a long story. I had to convince the doctor that was caring for me at the time that I was not ovulating. He was dead set that the pain from the appendix was ovulation pain, which is ridiculous to me now that I know what ovulation pain feels like. Oh my gosh. So again, at the time, I couldn't for the life of me remember when I had my last period, which happened to have been a couple days prior to this. So there's no way I was ovulating at the time. And then again, on the same instance, I had another doctor who thought I was pregnant, an ectopic pregnancy. Again, impossible for so many reasons. So tracking your cycle and knowing exactly what is going on with your body helps you in many ways. So when it comes to what you should be tracking, number one, you want to track the entire length of your cycle as a whole. Now, normal cycles range anywhere from 21 to 35 days. I have heard of more than that, less than that. Things can get a little bit crazy, but the important thing is knowing that there is kind of an average normal, which is 21 to 35 days, and different things other than that usually indicate different issues that should be dealt with. Another thing that you should be keeping track of is the length and flow of your period. So specifically, the length of your period could be anywhere from 3 to 7 days, and this is what is considered normal. I usually had 5-day periods that went down to 3-day periods after I had Angel, and are now pretty steady at 3 days again postpartum. Alongside the length of your period, you should also be monitoring the flow. So if it's very heavy or very light, again, these are things that you want to keep track of and kind of see what is your normal and your regular, and any changes thereafter would naturally be taken to your doctor. Along with length and flow, you should also be keeping a close eye on any other symptoms and keeping track of them just to make sure that you don't kind of change, your symptoms don't change or alter in a way that might actually indicate something else is going on and it's not simply your regular period symptoms. So to recap in regards to your period, it's important to track the length of your period, the flow, as well as any symptoms you may have, because all these things can indicate whether everything is okay in your body or not. Now, going into a bit more specific things that you can track, and especially when you are trying to get pregnant or not get pregnant, either way, is ovulation. So using various methods that we will speak about in a second, you track your ovulation because ovulation can actually change the length of your cycle. If you ovulate earlier or later in your cycle, this will make your cycle shorter or longer. For example, in my case, I would always have very steady ovulation. So I would ovulate on the same day every cycle, except for every 3 or 4 cycles when I would ovulate a bit earlier, making my cycles shorter, only every 3 to 4 cycles. Now, after ovulation, from the moment you ovulate until you get your next period is the luteal phase. The luteal phase basically is when your body is actually either preparing for implantation or preparing for your next pregnancy. Now, during that luteal phase, it's very important in the instance that you're trying to get pregnant, because a short luteal phase could actually be causing infertility issues. I don't know if you can see my little guest over here. Because what is a video if I don't have Iris in it? So the luteal phase, which is the time from ovulation until your next period, can last anywhere from 11 to 17 days, and this is considered normal. Now, a luteal phase can last anywhere from 11 to 17 days. The usual number would be 12 to 14 days. However, anything shorter than 11 days usually is not a good sign and is considered a short luteal phase, and that impacts your fertility. Now, tracking ovulation in order to understand your period lengths, etc., your cycle lengths, etc., requires a little bit of work because there are times when your body may gear up to ovulate, but actually not ovulate. There are times when you would have to have 2 surges within the same cycle. There are many, many things that can impact. Now, I will be making a future video going more in depth into tracking ovulation, luteal phase, all of that in regards to trying to conceive specifically. But I also will be making a separate video in regards to fertility awareness as a birth control, because currently I am watching my cycle, because the last thing I need right now is to have to use a pregnancy test. That's basically my goal right now, not to need to use a pregnancy test anytime soon. When it comes to how you're supposed to track, the number one way that people mostly track their cycle nowadays is via fertility apps or period app. And you download an application, it's super easy to use, you have it right there on hand, and you're able to kind of put in your dates, put in some information, and the app tells you when you're ovulating, when your fertile window is on, and all that detail. The only problem with these apps is that they are rather inaccurate. So I love these apps when it comes to kind of logging in information and using them as a diary, as a way to kind of have your information always on hand so that you can talk to your doctor, or if you end up in the hospital for whatever reason, you have all that information on hand and you're able to use it when needed. But when it comes to actually using it as a practical method to know when you're ovulating, whether it is because you want to get pregnant or you want to avoid pregnancy, I would say don't do it. They are incredibly inaccurate. Mine always said to me that I ovulate on cycle day 14. No matter what I did to it. It took a while for it to start realizing that I ovulate on cycle day 15, and even that was because I was logging in OPKs and not because it necessarily caught the drift. And for example, when I ovulated on cycle day 12, those odd cycles, it wouldn't even pick it up, like not even in the least. So please take fertility apps with a grain of salt. They are a great tool to have your information on hand. They're a great tool to log in your information and to use simultaneously with other methods, but not on their own. Now, one of the best, in my opinion, ways to track your fertility or your cycle and just kind of know exactly what's going on are ovulation tests. And naturally, you probably won't use ovulation tests unless you're trying to conceive. But I do believe that even when you're not and you're trying to avoid a pregnancy, that it is good to use ovulation tests for a while and kind of get a full idea and a full picture of your cycle, when you ovulate, how long your luteal phase is, and all of that information, because OPKs will help you with that more so than any other method, I believe. There is the charting method where we go into a bit more detail in regards to temperature, so basal body temperature, as well as cervical mucus and the position of your cervix. I never really did all of that. Basal body temperature is basically when you take your temperature every morning before you've even gotten out of bed, before you sit up, before you do anything, because the temperature changes just a little bit right before ovulation, and you're able to confirm ovulation that way. Cervical mucus also changes a lot throughout your cycle. Your cervical mucus can go from dry to watery to creamy to egg white, which is the most fertile and right before you ovulate, and then it goes back through that cycle again as you head towards your period. That is something that I monitored and kind of kept an eye on. I would suggest you can look at that, and you can actually log this into your app as well by simply looking when you wipe or when you just look into your underwear, basically. When it comes to checking your cervix position, I never really did that. I'm not really great when it comes to like having to look into those kind of things. I do know many women who do this, and it is a good way of knowing certain things. It's a lot more detail and a lot more in-depth though that I have ever gone before, and I don't think I would really do it because I think I kind of tried at one point, but I never really understood it, to be honest. The main thing when it comes to the position of your cervix is that the cervix will change position throughout your cycle, becoming more open, closed, higher or lower depending on the time, and this will ultimately lead to it being more low and open when you are fertile and less so when you are not. Now, coming a bit full circle to when you should start tracking and when to use all of these methods. When it comes to your health, I would say the sooner the better. If you want to start and you just got your period, that is perfect. You can literally just log in so many periods until you actually need them. If you're trying to conceive, I personally started tracking my cycles when I started trying to conceive. I do wish I had done it sooner, because it wasn't until I think at least 5 to 6 months into my fertility journey that I realized that my app and all my information was actually worth something. Because up till then, it was still collecting data and still trying to understand what my body was doing. I had to go through several cycles to realize that every 3 cycles I actually have a shorter cycle. Definitely starting, I would say, a minimum of 3 months before you try to conceive is ideal. I know that it's not what a lot of people do. I know I didn't do it, so I understand completely if you don't do it. I do know that if in the future I do decide to have a third baby, I would definitely be tracking and logging a lot sooner. And I'm actually tracking my cycle currently and will continue to track and just kind of see how I'm going postpartum as well as later on. Because again, as I said, whether you're avoiding pregnancy or trying to get pregnant, tracking your cycle is very important. And a final note in regards to avoiding pregnancy and tracking your cycle, it is very, very important to gather as much information as possible about your cycle before you trust this kind of method as birth control, because unless you know 100% when you're ovulating, it's definitely not 100% safe, because you never really know. So yeah, that is all. Those are all my little tips and info in regards to tracking your cycle. Tracking your cycle is very, very important, guys, and it's something that you definitely need to do no matter what. Simply by being a woman, it is one of the most important aspects of our health. Women's health is it's not discussed much, and not many people tell you that, oh, you should be tracking your cycle because it's what shows you if your body is healthy or not. Your cycle is the first part of your body that will be impacted when you are sick, when you are not feeling well, when you're depressed, even mental, emotional changes, hormonal imbalances. There are so many things that impact your cycle, and that is the first way that you will know that something is up and that you need to look after yourself a little bit more. Yeah. That will be all for this video, guys. I will be doing more videos in regards to tracking your cycle, so more in-depth on ovulation, more in-depth on the fertility awareness method, and just all these kind of things. And yeah, we will be learning more about our bodies and everything that has to come. We'll see how we go. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Better say something that would change my mind. Gotta give me something, 'cause I'm not blind.